when I first started playing disc golf, and like really got into it in 2016, I remember searching up on YouTube like Canada disc golf, and like just looking through videos, thinking like, oh man, what kind of Canadian scene is there? Like, what tournaments are?
You just heard him. That's Thomas Gilbert. That interview will be coming up later in this episode. We're so happy to have him on. He was gracious enough to come on at a pretty late hour as we were rushing to Lethbridge a couple weeks ago. And this is episode 4. We skipped a week there. We were a little bit busy in Lethbridge with the tournament. So, we rushed to get that interview, and then turns out we didn't quite have enough time to get this episode out in time. So coming to you now. Better late than ever, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and to shed some light on that, I was playing in the tournament that day, or the next day, so I was rushing to get in practice rounds on some courses I'd never played before. We got in super late. Thomas was kind enough to reschedule like 2 or 3 times on short notice for us. Plus, Andre was setting up to do his first crack at tournament filming.
Yes, that's it. That was the first time. It was a good practice run, that's for sure. So we can get into Lethbridge a little bit later, but first we want to talk to you about DiscGolfPark.
Yeah, this episode, like all of our previous ones, is sponsored by DiscGolfPark Canada. They are suppliers of course equipment, baskets, tee pads, signs, as well as design. They've got a great team of designers all across Canada that can help you with your next project. Nothing new disc golf parky in our part of the world right now, but I have another course that I'm starting. I guess this is the first time we've publicly talked about it. And I'll be using all DiscGolfPark baskets for that project because we're so happy with how well they turned out at the Ravens Nest course.
Yeah, speaking of Ravens Nest, we just got back from there. We just played around. It's the first weekday round in a long time. Yeah. So it was kind of nice to get out there. I was having some shoulder trouble, so it was nice to get out and play for a round. So
yeah, taking a nice casual weekday round. Felt really good after such a heavy tournament schedule for both of us.
Yeah.
And we got to look at the course, do a little bit of planning and prep for the upcoming tournament. You can follow that guy on discgolfscene.com/the rumble. Right now, we've got it open for returning players on an invite list. And Friday, we'll be opening it up to females and juniors. And a week after that will be the public registration for everybody else. So talk to the lady in your life and get her following that for Friday registration. And hopefully we'll see you there in August.
Yeah, and that'll be a good opportunity to test out those DiscGolfPark baskets if you've never had them. Mm-hmm. So definitely worth coming out for. And I believe the women's tournament down in Cranbrook is the weekend before that. So this would be a really good 1-2 punch for you and the lady in your life, or if you're just a lady looking to get out and enjoy some amazing disc golf. 2 really good weekends, some really good courses. It's well worth the travel.
Yeah, absolutely. Registration's open now?
Registration is currently open, yeah.
And that's August the 20th, right?
August 20th, yeah. And we have to apologize to Carrie Neal because we called it the first ever women's B-tier event. And our mistake was we searched women's specific tournaments, and I'm not sure if it was just the way that PDGA had laid it out, but we missed the Women's International Cup, which was run by Carrie Neal in 2006. And I'm telling you, this had a really good field. I'm going to pull that up. But this will be the second ever women's B tier in Canada. It's going to be amazing. So much to offer. So the players packs are going to be great. I just finished designing a jersey, so that's going to be an optional purchase. Lots to come out for.
Yeah, and while Andre's looking at that, I don't know a ton of women that have traveled to play those courses, but College of the Rockies and Wycliffe are both, top of the class for Canadian disc golf courses. And just to get the exposure to those courses, you will leave a better player and you'll have a great time. So for any of the ladies listening, please consider coming for that one. Like I said, registration is open now. And I know the people working on that tournament are doing everything they can to really blow the lid off of it between players packs and, extra fun stuff to do on the side, as well as, like we said, some of the best disc golf in the country.
All right. We have the list up from this inaugural event, and I just wanted to give a huge shout out to Carrie Neal for pulling in some big names.
Yeah, no kidding. I have never looked at this in 2006. I was getting my first discs, not looking at B tiers, but Val Jenkins took it down over Juliana Korver, Des Redding, and Elaine King in the field. There's also probably some other names in there that I don't recognize, but 2006, Juliana Korver and Des Redding, 961, 962 rated at the time. Yeah. Elaine King not far behind at 945, and Val took it down with 937.
Yeah, so I was pretty. When we did finally discover this, I was pretty amazed. That's a all-star crew. So hopefully we can live up to this. And Carrie Neal's coming out. It's going to be a blast to have her. She's helping out. She's part of the team that's organizing it as well. So there's a pretty big team behind this, and we're really looking forward to it. So definitely come check out the Women's Kootenai Crush.
Yeah. And shout out to Carrie again. Looking at this, she's been an absolute pioneer for disc golf in general, let alone women's disc golf. And to be pulling this off and attracting these players in 2006, that's beyond impressive.
Yeah. And I'll actually, I'll be seeing her soon too. So she's helping to run the Tournament Capital Open. So really looking forward to that one. That's a huge A tier that she's put a lot of work into as well. So that's a little bit of Carrie Neal love for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Should we get to Lethbridge?
Yeah, we can get to Lethbridge.
So Lethbridge, I'll start because we'll start with the filming and stuff. And it was, I probably won't have it release it until later in August or something like that. It's going to be my putts around the house with a baby on my chest. That's probably going to be my activity while I take care of the little one. So. But it was fun. It was great. It was really nice to learn a little bit about everything that goes into it and finding out what works and what doesn't. And it's, what I've learned is just keep it simple. So, yeah.
If I have to talk about Lethbridge, it's a really great time to introduce our beer of the day.
Yeah.
This is the Shimmer Dry Hop Sour from Twin Sails.
Twin Sails.
Which is in Port Moody.
Yeah.
I don't think I've had one of their beers before, or maybe the branding on their other cans is much different, but it's a funky can.
Yeah, I've had some of them before, and I do enjoy their beverages.
Interesting. It's definitely a sour up front, but it smooths out at the end. It's a nice summer beer.
It's a nice summer beer for sure. The weather hasn't been quite so summery, but it was great. I'm not a huge fan of sours myself in general, unless it's like 35 degrees out, but it's not bad. I do the only reason I picked this one is because it is a dry hopped sour, and that was something that I thought was quite intriguing. So
yeah, no, there's something in the finish that's sticking with me that's kind of fruit based, but yeah, it's a really nice beer, and I do like sours, and this is kind of up my alley. Usually a summer sour's got a lot more fruit content in it than this one, so it's kind of a nice change. Okay, now that that's in me, I can talk about Lethbridge. Showed up Friday night late. We played a practice round at a wide open course in 50 to 60 kilometer an hour winds. I putt with Splice or a Captain's Raptor, and it was not a great time.
How many discs did you throw that weren't Captain's Raptors or Splices or Firebirds?
None. I thought you were going to go Splice and Cap Raptor, and I was like, but I also threw a Firebird. Yeah, I think it was our second hole. I threw a Sexton Firebird that went from a 20-degree hyzer, set up to a 20-degree anhyzer, and then came back at me 80 feet, and it probably only went 250 to start with. So that was a learning experience. And then to show up the next day to the tournament and have relatively still conditions means my game plan was working against me pretty hard. All in all, my drives weren't bad, but my putting was not great, and you'll get to see that on coverage when Andre's done putzing around the house with it.
Yeah.
Hopefully a long time from now. But otherwise, the game felt good. Second round, I got like a cool eagle look on hole 2, which was nice. But other than that, the putting still wasn't there. And then by the third round, I wasn't really used to playing such long courses. People that have been to Lethbridge know that like Nick Sheeran from the long tees, there's 550 foot par threes.
It's crazy. It's nuts.
And yeah, my shoulder was about to fall out on like the 12th or 13th hole. And then there's this popping sound. And then I tried to throw a sidearm and then fell on the shoulder that popped because my body gave out. I really hate DNFing. So I even tried to throw left-handed after that just to finish out the last few holes. And it was a futile effort. And unfortunately, I DNF'd in the final round. But shout out to everybody I played with. My groups were great every time. Mm-hmm. There was a couple unfortunate holes for some of the guys I was playing with. I know one guy managed to throw into the water at the Aperture course, and the wind was strong enough that it was blowing his disc into the middle of the lake. Oh no! Which was a little disheartening to see. But otherwise, for my first trip to Lethbridge, I was pleasantly surprised with the Aperture course and Nick Sheeran Park. And Penequim, which is the one we played on first, that was largely wide open. Not my favorite place to play, but when you look at the piece of land they were given to build a disc golf course on, I really can't say a bad thing with what they did with the land. So that was Noah Higgins that designed that. So shout out to Noah. We can shout out to Noah again.
I was going to say, we can get it to Noah. Well, we can get to him right now. Congrats to Noah on the big MPO win. Talking to Rebecca, which is Noah's mom, she said that it was his first time winning this tournament on home soil. So, you know, usually the Casey Hannemeyers are out there. So
I think he would have won with Casey there because that first round at Penequim,
he crushed
that. Must be the course record. He shot 14 down.
Yeah.
To my disappointment.
Well, and the thing is, like, I was doing coverage, so I got to follow him the whole time. And it was really awesome to watch him, you know, through the rounds, and especially like, you know, you were with him on the first card, so it was kind of cool because there was a lot of like friendly banter and stuff, and you know, to see him keep that positive attitude and all that friendship and all that, you know, friendliness, and you know, he's a really good card mate, and it was really nice to watch him throughout that whole tournament, and especially like there's some holes where you watch him throw and you're like, he made some pretty incredible shots. So
yeah, for people that are listening to this that don't know Noah is a freshly minted 18-year-old, I think.
Yeah.
He was a junior playing for the last... when did he start playing? He's been playing for at least 5 years, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, now he's an absolute crusher and one of the most aggressive putters I've ever seen.
Yeah, his putts are on point for sure.
And they come out of his hand fast and confident. And I think with the wind and stuff in Lethbridge, either the putt developed to fight the wind or he developed the putt intentionally to fight the wind. But man, he can putt in all conditions and he can putt really well. So
well, and that's the thing is like I'm kind of glad I got footage of him because I can replay his putts, and he's one of those guys. I think I might start to like try to incorporate some of his mechanics into my own putt because the ones that he missed, they were really close to going in as well. So big shout out to him. It's really cool to see him do so well at his home tournament. Yeah,
and I honestly think he practices a ton. The sky's the limit for Noah. He's only going to get better.
Yeah.
He's a little bit short. He doesn't have those long, you know, Lizotte levers, but he's snappy enough that he makes up for it a lot.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, he's one of those guys, when you see him, the way he throws, he kind of gives, you know, us shorties inspiration. Because you know what I mean? Like, I'm not a tall guy. I'm not super lanky. And, you know, it's really nice to see someone able to throw the way he does and as far as he does. You know, it shows you that it's possible. So,
oh, absolutely. There's no lack of commitment in his drives. I think he opted to throw a driver on every hole at the open Penequim course, but he just must be comfortable with that absolute smash of a shot. He just throws a super overstable X1 as hard as he can, and if it only goes 340 feet, then that's perfect. He's confident throwing that hard in that wind.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and shout out to another young gun out of Alberta, Connor McLeod. He was on the lead card for the last two rounds, and he shot pretty well. It was really fun to watch him as well. And then, of course, on the FPO side, huge shout out to Amber Chiason.
I'm going to go and say that was Connell McLeod and Amber Chiason. Maybe I've got that wrong.
I don't know. But we'll have to get them to get back to us. So
yeah, you need like the Google text to speech where you can click on it and it says it for you.
Yeah, exactly. Amber, she played really well throughout the tournament. We weren't able to follow her because you were playing and I was doing coverage of the MPO. But it was really the times that I did see her, she was in really high spirits and really good time. Looked like she was having a good time, and all those ladies were really
all smiles from FPO.
Yeah. So it was really cool to see. Huge congrats to Amber. Also, congrats on the new store opening up in Calgary. That's really big for you. Cool. Looking forward to seeing how she does at the next one. All right. I think we could probably get to the interview with Thomas now. So without further ado, Thomas Gilbert. Well, our next guest, if you're a disc golf fan, he doesn't really need an introduction. He's been the top player in Canada for a very long time. He's one of the standout guys on tour. He really represents Canada on tour. Really nice guy, Thomas Gilbert. Thank you so much for coming on. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on.
Cool. So I think why don't we just get started with your season so far? And you started the winter down in Florida. Is there a reason that you decided to play disc golf down there as opposed to come back up to snowy Canada?
Yeah, it just gave me like a little bit more time to practice in the kind of conditions that we'll be playing in the majority of the year on the tour season. I felt like I'd practiced up in Canada the last couple of years, and most of my field work was up in my cottage on the frozen lake, which didn't translate the best necessarily to some of the courses that we play on tour. So I just decided that it'd be better, since I had gotten my work visa that allowed me to stay in the U.S. full time, to move down or travel down to Florida for the off season and get as much practice in as I could.
Cool. And it obviously worked well because you did really, really well in the tournaments before the Pro Tour even started. So do you think that that time was well spent down there?
Yeah, I think so. I think it really helped kind of not only keep my game kind of sharp throughout the entire off season, but also, I learned a few different things and was able to stay really consistent throughout the off season, which I think helped the start of my season too.
Yeah. Well, I found it kind of interesting. I'll make this a little less disc golfy question, but everyone from out west that's older retires and goes to California, and everyone out east seems to go to Florida. And you're like the youngest disc golf snowbird there ever was.
Yeah, for sure.
But as going back to the play part of it, obviously there's a lot of other pro players hanging out down in Florida. Anybody that helped with the practice? Was there a big learning experience, or was it just good to just be warm and dry and throwing discs?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely visited some friends. That's who I was staying with down there. So between November and December, I was staying with Eric Oakley and Tina Oakley in Pensacola, Florida, and as well Paige Pierce had just moved there over the last off season, so I got to spend a lot of time practicing with those people. Really just getting in some good reps before the kind of bulk of the off season, and then I went down and played those last 2 8-tiers kind of at the beginning of December in Florida, which I was able to take down, which was a pretty good feeling. But yeah, they were awesome, really good people to hang out with. And then after I went home back to Canada for Christmas break and just to spend some time with my family, I came back down about mid-January and spent about a month in Tampa, Florida, with new pro Kevin Kiefer, who lives in that area, then also joined up with Calvin a few times throughout that time to just play practice rounds and get some good practice in before the season started.
Yeah, so that's a pretty elite practice group, honestly.
Yeah.
So no one better to practice with, for sure. And for anybody who's listening that hasn't looked at your PDGA page or hasn't followed you, like you said, like these were 8-tiers. Just because they weren't DGPT recorded whatever events, like it's not like you went and beat up a bunch of local guys in C-tiers. These were big tournaments.
Yeah, it was. I think that the first 8-tier in Florida that I played, the Chain Hawk Open, quite possibly might be my best win to date, just because of the field that was there. There was multiple players. I think there was 4 players that might have been rated 1030 or above, including Calvin himself. So, and that was the first time I really felt like I played like at a top level the entire time. Where I think my lowest round was 1044, and I averaged I think like 1040 or 1054 for the tournament. And so that was just like an amazing weekend of high level golf the entire time, and it just felt really good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the numbers don't lie that that's fantastic disc golf, but maybe it's worth asking because for myself, I don't have to look at the rating. I don't have to look at my score. Halfway through the round, I know for myself that I'm playing my best golf or something like that. Was it?
Yeah.
Did you have that feeling? I know a lot of people say like finding that flow state and then they play better.
Yeah, that tournament particularly, I was throwing the disc pretty well. I would say like definitely above average, but the big separation there was my putting, where I felt like I couldn't really miss that weekend, even though I know I did for sure miss a few opportunities, but almost 100% inside circle one, I think the entire tournament, and as well just like every circle two putt I felt like I was going to make before I even walked up to the putt, and that's a feeling that you can't quite capture continuously through each event. And so just that level of confidence, and then also the level of execution was just so at such a high level that I played amazingly throughout the entire week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that feeling. It feels like every time you put the putter up in the air, it just goes in the basket.
Exactly.
And it feels like when you don't have it and you start chasing it, that's when you start putting worse and worse.
Yes, it's very annoyingly true.
Definitely been there for sure.
Well, I think we should maybe turn our direction towards the Pro Tour itself. How do you think you've fared so far on the tour this year?
Pretty good. It's definitely been a standout year. As far as my performance goes, I've had, I believe, 3 top 10 finishes at the Elite Series, and then as well, I think another top 10 finish at one of the Silver Series. And so I think before this year, my best finish at a Pro Tour was 9th, and I had 2 top 10 finishes last year. And so just being about just under halfway through our season so far, having 3 top 10s already, and having good appearances on lead cards and all sorts of good performances like that is really encouraging, and kind of solidifies my belief that I'm playing at a higher level than in years past.
Did you have that sort of expectation going into the year?
Not exactly. I knew I wanted to play well. I do kind of have like the goal of winning my first Pro Tour this year. If I could kind of consistently put 3 or 4 rounds together back to back, I think that'd be a winning recipe to try to take down one of these big tournaments.
Yeah,
I know I was very close at a few tournaments in the past, and I think I know if I just can put all 3 rounds together, there's no reason I shouldn't be able to hopefully win a Pro Tour this year.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that you have a few top 10 finishes, which is amazing. But I feel like you've done that on the back of some very strong later rounds. Is there a reason why you seem to be playing better towards the end of tournaments?
I'm honestly not really sure, but it definitely was something that I noticed as well. Through the first 3 Pro Tours that I played, I think I shot a 1091 at Las Vegas, 1076 at Waco, and then like a 1058 at Jonesboro. So it for some reason I have strong finishes at these tournaments, but I haven't really put together the reasoning behind it. But I hope it kind of continues to trend that way, because 10 like high 1060 average is something I definitely want to keep up.
Yeah, that's definitely winning golf. I want to jump back really quick because I also think that this definitely could be the year where you get that Elite Series win. Is there a course or a tournament coming up where it's in the back of your head where you think that might be the one where you play well, or the course suits your game, or one that you're waiting down the line to really jump on?
I don't really have one like particularly in mind. I know like OTB Open is a long course, so I know that can favor a player like myself. I think honestly, I think like Maple Hill, I think could be an event that I can really capitalize on. I know I played extremely well there in the past. I currently hold the course record for the current layout of Maple Hill.
Wow.
So I feel pretty confident on that course. And I think, it's just putting those 3 rounds together. And I think it's a pretty solid event for me. And I'm hoping that I could maybe take down something like that this year.
Interesting, because that is a course that can punish you if you're not on top of your game too.
Absolutely.
Interesting. I thought you might say something like Deglo again, longer course, but
yeah, Deglo is another event that I played well in the past and would hope to maybe see a peak performance from.
Cool.
Speaking of challenging courses, what was your experience like at this at the DDO?
So if anyone had checked out the 3rd round coverage, you could see that it was a little bit of a struggle that 3rd round, just in the crazy winds. I mean, it was just something that I wasn't really prepared to deal with. I guess it was wild. I mean, the shots were like hard to execute and unpredictable. You'd think that you had thrown it out of bounds on one side of the fairway and the wind would blow it out of bounds all the way on the other side of the fairway. And it just was super hard to kind of manage at points. But I think I learned a lot from that round. I think, wins like that, you can't be an aggressive player. If you're too aggressive in those kind of conditions, it just doesn't really work out. I was still kind of able to manage a semi-aggressive game plan the first 2 rounds, which kept me on lead card. But as soon as the wind picked up, you needed to smarten up and play the smartest shot for par on almost every hole.
Yeah, but you did rebound a little bit on the final round, so managed to make up for that windy 3rd round.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and where are you now?
Right now, I'm just kind of taking a week off as I travel down to Santa Cruz for the Masters Cup. So right now I'm in Arizona, but moving my way slowly over towards that area.
Cool. Well, hold up.
Yeah.
I'm not done on DD.
Oh, there we go.
DDO, like you said, extremely punishing when you get aggressive. But also, it's an interesting situation there, because from what I saw, for players of your caliber, if you walked out onto Jones Supreme or Country Club with no OB, that is not a particularly interesting or challenging course for Pro Tour players.
Mm-hmm.
You need the OB, but it's also the thing that makes it super punishing. And I was talking to Casey Hannemeyer earlier that sometimes the reactions you get off the ground start to feel random, right? You throw a spike hyzer, it sits up, it rolls across the fairway, like you said, OB on the other side. And whenever you introduce randomness, you kind of lose a bit of or real competition, right? Because you can't really measure yourself as much. So from someone that's played it and stood there, how do you make that go away on those properties? If you want to comment on the course, or is it just maybe find a weekend that the weather's not as aggressive? Because springtime, at least where we're at, is windy season, and it always seems to be crazy windy there.
Yeah, I think it's a tough thing with Emporia, just because you almost have to count on the weather being terrible all the time in that week, that slot that we play DDO in. And I think that was something that they didn't really have prepared for last year. So last year, the first 2 rounds were very calm in comparison to what they have in years past, like we had this year. And the Jones Gold layout that they had designed, that had been redesigned into Jones Supreme this year, was a very easy course in calm conditions, where I think they built a course expecting it to be windy, expecting it to be more challenging, and have players shoot around 7, 8, 9 under par. But because it was calm conditions, players were shooting 14, 15 under par. And I think they did a good job at kind of over adjusting to increase the difficulty. So even when the course is in dead calm conditions, I don't think you're going to be seeing much better than 10 under par at this tournament. But it is definitely something that kind of you have to factor in. And I think as well, they're thinking about the World Championships because it's in, I think, late August, early September, where the winds are a lot calmer, but the humidity is a lot higher. So that'll be the challenge that'll change on that event. But I know they're going to make a few tweaks. I myself submitted an event feedback form on the PDGA, just letting them know my thoughts and feelings about the course and how they could improve for the World Championships, just because that is such a big and important event for us as professionals. And so I hope they take that into consideration and make some necessary tweaks to just make a really good experience for the World Championships.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask. Do you expect the tweaks to happen for Worlds?
I believe so. Yeah, I talked to the course designer and the TDs for the event, and they seem to be really encouraged by the feedback that some of the players gave. And I know a lot of us were kind of reiterating the same points, and so I hope that they can kind of make those necessary tweaks and make the tournament a better experience, not only for the players but also for the spectators and fans as well.
Yeah, and I heard some of that feedback because obviously I wasn't there, but I talked to a bunch of people that watched it and said that it's a tough thing because it's not as exciting to watch your favorite pro take a 9 on a hole, when it feels like they've thrown maybe not great shots, but passable shots. At the same time, over the last few years, there's been a big conversation in disc golf about the scoring being too low. People shooting 14 under is just too much. And it's a debate to change the baskets, make the courses harder, what have you. But it has to be the right way for the right reasons. And I think you're right. If they tweak that course just enough, it'll take it from frustrating to challenging.
Yeah, I think so too.
Hopefully.
Did you get the vibe from many other professionals that they're looking forward to hitting that course again at the World Championships and trying to get another crack at it?
I think some definitely want some revenge on the course, on the trip, just because they weren't necessarily perfectly happy with their performance in the wins that we had. But I think, quite a few of the pros are looking forward to coming back and trying to attack the course, and then some as well just frustrated by the challenge because it is kind of more and more kind of favoring a certain play style. And I know that there's some pros that are not as in favor for that, and other pros that are more in favor for that. So there's different opinions out there, but I think in general, more people are excited to kind of come back and take another stab at it for World Championships.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to fast forward now to the Tournament Capital Open that's coming up. We're going to be doing coverage. You're going to be on Lead Guard. That's going to be very exciting. And I'm assuming you're going to Canadian Nationals, but are there any other Canadian tournaments that you're going to try to hit up?
So those are the two that are solidly on the schedule right now. I know there's the Eddyville Open that I would like to come play. I think there might be a schedule conflict with another event, and as well, there's a few A tiers scheduled on the same weekend as European Open, which is something that I already had been planning on the last couple of years to go to. I think the BC Open and as well as the Toronto Island Open are both on that same weekend, and so unfortunately, I'm going to have to miss those as long as Europe still pans out. But I hope to play more events in Canada, and I know I'll be back as well kind of once the season wraps up, and hopefully play a few other events along with that.
Cool. Very cool. Actually, if we can talk about that for a second, you and I actually played a practice round at Eddyville with Casey, Ontario Provincials.
That's right, yeah.
Congrats on the win at that one, by the way.
Thank you.
Are you planning on going back because you feel like you need to defend that title, or do you just enjoy the property and close to home?
Yeah, I just enjoy the property. My aunt lives about 35 minutes away from the course, so it's nice to be able to go out there and visit them as well. But yeah, I enjoyed the tournament last year. It was a lot of fun to come back. I think it also kind of like shocked me back into my game a little bit because on a few pro tours before provincials, I wasn't quite having the performance that I had really wanted to, and I think coming back home and kind of getting a fresh look at like the competition, just gaining a little bit more confidence, coming back and just kind of playing the game that I kind of had wanted and to play the last few weeks felt really good, and it kind of snapped me back into my confident mindset and led to more good performances throughout the rest of the year. So it's definitely one that I enjoy and have good memories of. So I would hope to be able to play that event again, if not this year, then in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree because it's a very scoreable course and it's a
Mhm.
great confidence booster course. There are some tight gaps, but the par for someone that throws as far as you is a little bit soft. And you can
Mhm.
walk down with a deep double digit score and you feel good about it.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, it was impressive to watch you out there. And yeah, like I said, again, congrats on that one. It was cool to see you perform that well, and it was cool to see anyone perform at that level in the heat that we were having. Because if I remember,
Mhm.
it was like 95% humidity and 38 degrees or something.
Yeah, I think that honestly was probably the hottest tournament that I played all of last year, which I think is good because apparently that's what the World Championships are going to be like this summer as well. Just upper temperatures of like 40 degrees or hotter and humidity at 90 to 100%.
Yeah. Our three American listeners are like, what? It's hot in Canada? Like,
Yeah.
makes sense.
It's hot. I have a picture of a friend of ours, Timon. We were on the one where Marty played the year before with no shoes, with the little island in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
He went looking for his disc and he was getting so hot he walked back out and his face was beading with sweat to the point it looked like he had fish scales.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, or like
Wow.
we're at like 15% humidity out west, so going out
Yeah.
there you feel like you're in Hawaii.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're used to being the one of the only Canadians on tour regularly, but we're starting to see a few more people head down there. Are you excited to have some Canadians down there to compete against and compete with?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it when more Canadians come down and compete with me in some of the Elite Series events we got down here. I know like Chris Oslands and Martin Hendel were down earlier in the year at Las Vegas, as well as a bunch of FPO players along with them, Chantel and Kat Johnson. And then, of course, Casey and Oz at DDO. I think getting a little bit of world's practice in themselves. And yeah, I hope that there's a lot more players that can come down and kind of participate in some of the pro tour events that they have down here. It's awesome to see the representation from the Canadians, and also just to see like all the international representation we've had this year from the Europeans and all the other competitors. It's been nice to see kind of like that little mix up of the pool field.
Yeah, and it's certainly fun to watch, that's for sure. And do you
Mhm.
think with the way that the sport is sort of blown up, not just in the United States and Canada, worldwide, do you think you're going to start to see more and more Canadians coming down to tour once they realize it's a feasible option financially and job wise?
I think so. Yeah, there's quite a crew of young players that are kind of coming up and getting really really good, and I think that we'll see a lot of them kind of probably testing the waters within the next 2 or 3 years. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if one of them jumps into it full time and starts touring and kind of following the trail that I had kind of started a few years ago of just hitting up as many tour events as possible and kind of seeing where their potential can lead to. It'd be awesome to see like 3 or 4 full time touring Canadians year to year in a couple of years.
Yeah, that'd be really cool to see. And I think we're not far off from that. I think Casey's down there. He's going to be down there for a little while. I'm
Hmm.
not sure what Martin Hendel and Chris Osland's plans are. But I think Marty usually picks and chooses when he goes. He plays, 2, 3, 4 a year, the ones he wants to hit up. Thomas, I think you are the only guy that's really doing the full tour and has done like a full tour for a long time. But it is kind of an interesting situation where it seems like to be successful on the pro tour, you need to have the exposure of those events so that, even if the first year you're the best player in Canada or you're the top 3 in Canada or what have you, I don't think anything really prepares you for playing against tour level players and what you have to do until you do it. So that first initial investment of time and money to get down there and know that I might come in 85th in every tournament for this year. It's tough, but I think as the sport grows, like you were saying, there will be more money from sponsors where you don't have to sleep in your car or you don't have to cash every event or go home. And I think that would be the change that probably brings more Canadians down over time. But you can probably speak to that better than I can.
Yeah, no, I believe you're on the right track. I think that just the ability for high level Canadians to be able to tour full time without really having to be extremely worried about their expenses is coming very soon. I know that's kind of something that I've developed over the last couple of years to just get a contract that doesn't have me worrying about cashing at every single event and have enough media exposure to still kind of keep my brand up and play well at events here and there, but not having to play exceptionally every single event just to survive on the road. And I think that, a lot more players will have those opportunities as the sport just continues to grow and the recognition of Canadian players also continues to grow. Because I think there are a lot of Canadians that are kind of starting to gain a little bit more recognition just as the tour grows bigger and more people from different areas are kind of becoming more well-known, not only in their like local areas, but within the whole entire country and the whole entire tour.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to the contract really quick, because obviously you jumped onto Prodigy a couple of years ago. When you were out, I'm sure there was lots of people knocking at your door. Was that something that kind of caught your eye? Was that someone that could provide, incidentals, travel, hotels, health insurance, because obviously that's a big deal in the States as an athlete, things like that, versus, incentives for placements and things like that?
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of just kind of looking out for what contract would best be able to fit my needs and best be able to support me while touring. And Prodigy was able to offer a very nice contract that allowed me to tour full time without any kind of worry. And I'm very grateful for that support that they give me to be able to tour kind of worry free, and as well just have really cool tour series and signature series discs that people can purchase. That's always like a kind of like step in the touring level of players where you get your first disc, and that's like an amazing opportunity. But yeah, I think that in the future, I would just be very happy to continue to get that kind of support from Prodigy or whatever manufacturer I have in the future.
Yeah, and speaking about signature discs, my question is, when you first started playing disc golf, were you ever expecting to be playing at a level where you would have people seeking out your signature disc and seeing you as this, this role model and stuff? Is that something you were expecting when you first started, or is that a goal you had in mind? Or
no, it kind of just happened upon me pretty quickly, where at first I remember it was always a big goal of mine to get sponsored by a company.
Yeah.
And that was like a huge step for me, was just to get enough recognition that a company wanted me to throw their disc exclusively. And at the beginning I was working really hard to try to get Innova, because that's just what I had started out with. When I first picked up the sport, Innova discs were the only thing that I had access to. And so I like really wanted an Innova sponsorship. I remember writing emails to the corporate of Innova being like, hey, I'm this Canadian guy, this Canadian kid that's playing like local MPO, and I would be really excited to get like just an ambassador sponsorship or something like that. And then I kind of started to tour like a little bit, or test the waters of touring, and I won my first A tier in 2018 in MPO, and that's when I kind of got recognized as like, okay, this guy's like kind of a good player. And then they gave me my sponsorship for the first time on Innova in 2019, and it's kind of grown from there. But I wouldn't say it was necessarily a goal of mine to like continue to grow off that and get a Tour Series disc that people have, like, to have fans that want to buy those discs. That wasn't necessarily part of the plan originally. It was just kind of more focused on like how far I could push myself in the sport. And then once I kind of reached that point, then it just kind of started to snowball and people pick up on that. And I think that's where I got some of the fans that I have, and as well as some of the recognition of like getting a Tour Series disc for people to buy and support me as a player.
I think it's interesting because Andre's a newer disc golfer. I've been around, well, for how young I am, I'm a bit of a fossil, but for when you started playing disc golf, there was like 3 people that had names on discs. Like nowadays, players get so much more support with these Tour Series discs. But when I started playing, if your name wasn't Ken Klimo or Dave Feldberg or Nate Doss, you probably didn't have a name on a disc, period. And that support was, you know, it was a big deal to have. It's still a huge deal, but you had to be a world champion to get your name on a disc.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I think that just kind of goes with the growth of the sport as well. Like, you know, it's absolutely taken off in the last couple of years. And I think it's just, I think it's incredible that these young players and kids that are just getting into it now, it's like, you know, we're Canadian, we're hockey fans. You know, I remember like Canucks fan. So, you know, growing up watching Tyler Bertuzzi and Marcus Naslund and those guys.
Yeah. Canucks.
You guys had Sindine and whatnot, but it's, in a way, you're kind of that player for a lot of young kids in Canada, and I think that's pretty neat.
It's very cool. I mean, it's crazy to kind of like reflect on that sometimes, where it's just like, yeah, I'm like a role model for the new age of Canadian disc golfers. It's kind of crazy to think about in that sense, where like because I remember when I first started playing disc golf and like really got into it in 2016, I remember search champ on YouTube, like Canada disc golf, and like just looking through videos, thinking like, oh man, what kind of Canadian scene is there? Like, what tournaments are there? I remember the only coverage I could find at the moment was the 2014 Toronto Island Maple Leaf, and it had Simon Lizotte, Ricky Wysocki, Will Strusick, and Kim Scott Wood on the coverage. And I remember Kim was the only Canadian on the card at the time, or at least that I thought, because Simon's half Canadian. But I was like, whoa, look at this guy, like Kim Scott Wood. That's the guy that I looked up to at that time, because he was the only guy that was kind of on coverage as a Canadian. And I remember watching that video probably 20 or so times, and actually reaching out to him and caddying for him at a tournament here in Ontario pretty shortly after I had kind of gotten into disc golf, and just thinking of like how cool of an opportunity that was, and how much of a role model he was for me even before I really got to even know him. And just to think that some kid out there is doing the same thing, searching up Canada disc golf and finding me on coverage and watching me and kind of relating to me as a player is just crazy to think about. But it happens, I'm sure, all the time. But it's a really awesome opportunity that I have, and I'm pretty thankful to be that guy for these new Canadian disc golfers.
We talked to Ben Smith a couple of weeks ago, and he said he suffers from a bit of imposter syndrome with all the course and TD work he's done. Does it feel like that for you sometimes? Because sometimes, even for small things, for me, designing a local course or whatever, you kind of look at yourself and go, should me? Like, should I be doing that? And I will probably and almost definitely never be in your position where when you do that reflecting and sit back, does it feel a bit surreal to think that every kid that Googles Canada Disc Golf is going, I need to cut my hair like Thomas Gilbert and I need to cut like Thomas Gilbert, you know?
No, it definitely is surreal. And yeah, it's crazy to think about. Just like some of the messages I get from some of the young kids is pretty cool. And yeah, it's just a lot to kind of reflect on. And it's crazy to think about when you think about it in like that much detail. Where like, yeah, these kids are looking up me and like trying to replicate my form in my game, where I was in that same position. But it's definitely a very cool feeling, and I'm like honored to be that person for those people.
Cool. Well, I don't think we should take up too much more of your time. You're obviously welcome on the podcast whenever you want. Looking forward to seeing you in May, so that'd be really fun. Really excited about that. So, yeah.
Thanks for your time tonight, Thomas.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me on, and yeah, I look forward to being on your coverage for the Kamloops tournament.
Yeah, cool. All right, we'll see you then.
All right, thanks, guys.
Yeah, have a good night.
All right, that interview was brought to you by BR Disc Golf. BR Disc Golf is a disc golf company based out of Camrose, Alberta, and they are a local shop there. Probably the best place in Central Alberta to find discs, and you know they really pride themselves on their shop and being able to go inside and feel the disc before you buy it. The guys there are really nice. They'll help you find whatever you're looking for. Really knowledgeable, and yeah, I highly recommend if you're ever in the area. You know, you're traveling to Calgary from Edmonton or vice versa. Definitely worth the stop in.
It's a brick and mortar only store, correct?
They do sell online,
oh, yeah.
But it's I don't think their whole selection. I think they have more of selection in their store. So if you do want to shop online, you can shop online as well. But it's their store and stopping in. That's really where it's at. BR Disc Golf. Check them out. They're on Instagram, Facebook. Definitely worth the checkout. All right, so you just heard from him. That was Thomas. Obviously, the big news at Masters was that Thomas had to drop out due to COVID. He's doing okay now. I messaged him to ask him if it affected any of his plans for the coming tournaments, which include a bit of a Canadian stop. So, and he said that no, he's still planning on playing in the OTB, and it shouldn't affect his plans to come up to Canada. So he's running a clinic in Calgary, and he will be at the Tournament Capital Open, where we will be taking footage of him and a few other of the good players out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Thomas has his shots and all that jazz, and he's a young, healthy guy. I'm sure he's already half rebounded, but unfortunately took him out of Masters Cup.
Yeah, I think he's just waiting for the negative test result. I'm not sure if at this point if he has it, but that's really what it takes to get into the OTB. But he said he's feeling good. He's feeling 100%, and he's ready to go for OTB. So that's really good for him. And we look forward to hopefully seeing him on some league coverage there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little rusty in my mind, the layout and things for OTB, but I remember being an absolute crusher course.
It's a crusher course. I think they changed it a little bit, but I think it is one of those bigger courses, and it really caters towards the Thomas Gilberts and the Ezra Aderholds and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, I think long holes, but also a lot of low ceilings. So like you need to crush a worm burner or have a strong roller game. Should be exciting to see, because that's kind of the opposite of what you get at Daylaw.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, really cool. Will be really cool to see those two back to back.
Oh, and MVP sponsoring them this year, the OTB Open, adding a Western tournament to their list. Obviously, they've got MVP Open at Maple Hill, and now this is the OTB Open brought to you by MVP. They have a OTB Open special edition wave out right now, which you can pick up at OTB, and those are pretty cool because they're glow waves for the first time.
Oh, that's
glow
really
2.0
cool.
waves, yeah. For people that are MVP fans, Waves and Glow 2.0 are two of the
For
top
anyone
things to look
I was
for.
going to say, for anyone that's Glow fans.
Yeah, totally.
That's great. That's cool. But yeah, we can get back to the Masters. We have a little bit more to get into here. Huge shout out to Gannon taking down his first DGPT. So that's really awesome for him. Obviously, he had that playoff hole at Las Vegas and narrowly lost out on that one. So it's really, really awesome to see him do well here.
Yeah, it's nice that he managed to keep his mental game strong. That didn't make him falter for a second. And I think after that, it was just a matter of time before he was getting that win. He's performed super well at almost every tournament he's
Very
played.
consistent, definitely. He's really fun to watch.
And you know what? If we're going to pump Gannon up a little bit, there's a disc golf form check group on Facebook. And he comes in and he posts form videos and he helps people out. You don't get access like that to pro players ever. And he's just out there giving out his knowledge for free. That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely worth a follow on Instagram too. I don't know if you follow him on Instagram, but he's always posting on there too. He's doing live videos and everything. So big shout out to Gannon. He's not Canadian, but whatever. All right. And how did the Canadians do? Actually, before we get to the Canadians, we just got to give a quick shout out to James Conrad, Matty Oram. They really pushed it towards the end there and really had to make Gannon, make some putts and do well towards the end. And as Chris Clemens as well, he's pushing towards the end too. So
yeah, I'm just looking at it now. That final round, Matty O shot off 48, 2 better than Gannon, but just behind by 1. Same with James Conrad. Was tied actually with Gannon going into it. Now that I look at it, I unfortunately have not seen the coverage yet, so I am just looking at the stats. But a couple other things happened. We saw that Josh Anthon got 5th place. Controversial topic, that one, so I'll stay away from it a bit. But regardless of what you think out of him personally, the guy can still golf. Also, AB and Paul McBeth tie. And this is important because if we remember back, I think McBeth said if he got beat by AB at 3 events, he would give Hannah's car to Anthony. And that's cutting it a little close for Paul.
That is kind of he's probably getting a little nervous
because I think AB got him at DDO because Paul had a pretty poor showing in the final round, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Maybe it was more than 3 tournaments he had to beat him in. But I'm sure them tying at that one, there was a lot of banter coming out of the parking lot after the tournament. And that's always fun to see.
Yeah. Awesome. And as for the Canadians, we had Casey finishing 78th. I believe the field was just about around 120. So middle of the pack. He's finding his groove, and he recently posted on Instagram that he's starting to figure out his discs a little bit more as he's been down there now for a few weeks, and it will be really exciting to see how he does for the rest of the swings here.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, where Casey typically plays and where we play is quite high elevation, all things considered. And when you're playing close to sea level in California, everything starts to flip over on you. And I know playing in Ontario with Casey in the past, that has been a big pain in the butt. You jump out of the plane, go to the course, and you're like, stock wind fighter disc decides it wants to turn over on you, and your max distance hyzer flip disc turns into a roller, and then suddenly you've got to relearn the discs you've been throwing for 2 years. So and most of our listeners are probably from Canada, and they probably know that or know of that a little bit. But our 1% of US listeners might not know that. And obviously, if you get closer, you get down to the coast and, stuff like that. Oh, totally.
But and then Max finished 53. 53rd.
Yes, Max finished 53rd. Kind of just past the middle of the field.
Yeah, and he's kind of been hovering around that area for a little bit here. So he's had some ups and downs. So.
Yeah, flirting around the cash line a lot for sure.
Exactly.
I think both guys said playing down there was super fun though, and that's something you kind of overlook.
Yeah,
but you got to think Max has spent the last how long now? You wouldn't know. I would know.
Yeah, I have no clue.
About 6 years in Sweden, and I don't know if Casey's ever done the California thing. So there's still, life lessons and adventure being had regardless of the scores on the golf course. I know they'd both like to be finishing first, but there's some invaluable disc golf and life experience going on there. So,
yeah, and I mean, just being able to explore and play in these tournaments and play these courses is an experience in itself. So
yeah, and I was texting back and forth with Max the other day, and he'd only been down there for a couple months now. I think he said he'd already been to like 36 different states or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, road trip of a lifetime.
How many of our listeners can say they've been to 36 states? So
I think I've been to like 3.
I think I'm up to like I did a big bike trip down there, so I'm probably up to about, I'm gonna say like 18.
Oh, I can clock this off right now. Idaho, Montana, Washington, Arizona, California. I've been to 5.
I've been to those 5, and then plus a bunch.
All the ones that connect
out
them.
east. Yeah, exactly. So I have a question. Does Max know that we are fanboying him?
I'm just talking about my buddy. You can fanboy whoever you want.
All I'm saying is, I don't know. We've been giving Max the shout outs.
Yeah,
Does he listen?
I don't know if Max has ever listened, to tell you the truth.
Max, if you're listening right now, we need you to tag Park Pro on Instagram and say, yes, we're listening.
And if I'm threatening you to do that, blink 3 times so someone saves you.
Yeah.
No, he's got a lot of long drives ahead of him. They're doing their tour in an RV, so I'm sure once they're done listening to the same playlist on loop over and over again, they might decide to mix in a Park Pro Northern Flights podcast.
We'll see. Lots of driving. All right, we can get on to the FPO winner. Huge congratulations to Sarah Hokum. Speaking of MVP, she played really well this tournament. Katrina Allen was right behind her, and I believe it came down to the last couple of holes, so it was a little dramatic. Katrina Allen finished bogey. I believe they were tied, and she finished bogey. So,
yeah, and well, the other story, the FPO side, was Ella Hansen, right? She was outright leading. She hasn't been playing for a long time. Absolute crusher, though. And it would have been an interesting story because this would have been her first tour win as well.
Yeah,
we could have had a Gannon Burr and Ella Hansen double first timer win. I did catch a little bit of the FPO side, and Ella was throwing some great shots. And I think it just came down to the final round when it slipped away. I'm looking at the scores now, and yes, Ella unfortunately shot 7 strokes worse than Sarah Hokum and Katrina Allen to finish +2, tied with Katrina, and losing by 2 to Sarah Hokum. So if she could have kept the pace in that final round, she would have had a victory by a pretty wide margin, actually.
Yeah, I'm a huge Ella fan, especially, given the ultimate background, that she's definitely one that I've been following. So it's really cool to see her do well at these tournaments. Hopefully she'll get a win here in the next little while.
I think she will. She's an absolute competitor and athlete.
100%.
I think she'd be successful in most sports.
Yeah.
No matter, she could pick it up and be competitive. So I think it's only a matter of time before she, gets that victory she's looking for.
Yeah, and Hokum, she did really well. And
absolutely.
I don't know if many of our listeners have, if they watch FPO, Sarah Hokum has a really unique forehand style. She's really fun to watch, and she's a really good character. So definitely worth checking out some of that coverage when you can.
Yeah, when you see her throw, and she throws, I would say 95% sidearm, even on holes that most people have no business throwing sidearm on. Her form is unique, and it caught me by surprise because it does look, no offense to the Sarah Hokum that's definitely not listening to this, a little bit janky. And then suddenly she's throwing a rocket sidearm turnover. Yeah. On some very specific line, landing 5 feet from the pin. It's really, really fun to watch her throw.
Yeah, definitely. So hopefully she can keep that up. And, she's another one of my favorites to watch on the FPO side. So really cool to see her do well as well. An interesting little tidbit I found on the American field. We didn't have any Canadians in this field. And there was, at the beginning of the tournament, there was only one lady from Finland, Annie Makala, but she ended up dropping out after round 1. So this was an all-American field, which I thought was kind of interesting because I don't know if we haven't had that this year for sure. So
it's a bit surprising for sure, especially because California is like a place when you're in Canada and it's still pretending it's winter in the springtime where you want to escape for a while.
Yeah.
But being not a pro touring golfer, I don't know what registration for Masters Cup is like. It might be very difficult to get in.
That's true. I could see that.
I don't know if there's rules like in the past Las Vegas Challenge, your registration was based on how many Las Vegas challenges you'd been to in the past. So if you've been to 5 before, then you get registration priority over someone that's been to 3 versus 1 versus whichever. I don't know if there's something specific that keeps new players out of Masters Cup, or if it's just a popular tournament and it filled up in 40 seconds like most do these days.
Yeah. I do remember checking out the OTB as well, and I remember there wasn't a lot of, I think it was a very American field as well. On the men's side, we have, of course, our Thomas Gilbert and Casey Hannemeyer from Canada. And then there's a few Estonians, Finland, and Sweden. So, there's probably 10 or so people from outside of the States. But on the women's side, we have no
non-American players.
No non-American players. So all American. It's still very fun to watch. There's some really good names out there, obviously, but you won't be seeing the Kristen Tatars or, the Anna Bloom-Rose or any Canadian, really. So,
yeah, and that's too bad because I think Henna and Evelina both throw quite far for the FPO division and might be very successful at a tournament like
the OTB. Yeah, this is one that would be kind of cool to watch those ladies throw. So,
yeah. That said, do you have any thoughts and feelings on who you might see at the top in the FPO?
Well, not really, honestly. I don't know this course that well. Obviously, I think you're gonna see Katrina Allen up there. She's been killing it this year. She always seems to be towards the top, and I don't know if this is just me personally, but I feel like she has a lot of really late pushes, and especially in like the late rounds and stuff. So I think she will always be in contention. Haley King crushes, and then the only other one that sticks out to me is Valerie Manduhano. So.
Missy Gannon crushes as well. Jen Allen's in that field. I know she's had some shaky putting on and off this year, but she's the world female distance record holder for a reason. She can keep up for sure. And then my dark horse, Brody Smith, for this one. Kat Murch has had a great year.
Kat Murch.
After last year being kind of touch and go, she has come out on fire this year.
It's really cool to see her do so well. For sure.
Looking at the registration list now, Kona Panis also throws real far. So if she's having a good putting day, if it comes together for her, I think she can be competitive as well.
Yeah, as long as she feels comfortable playing. I think there's been some issues with, not issues, but I think she's dropped out of a couple events just out of safety, just, maybe not, I don't want to say fear of COVID, but just trying to be really careful about it. So hopefully she gets to play this one, and we really look forward to. I really want to see her do well with those new discs. So
yeah, absolutely. It was a big deal, and I'm pretty sure DD paid her real well.
Yeah,
and it's been a bit of a lackluster season for her. So hopefully,
so far,
exactly. Hopefully it works out for her and for DD. I'm sure they'd both like to see her perform well. And then we just talked about her, but we haven't brought her up again. Ella Hansen. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. She's got to be part of it.
Yeah. She's definitely in the conversation for sure. So, do you have any picks for the men's side?
Again, I would just pick the crushers. I haven't seen the changes they made to the course, so it might not be so distance, dependent this time. But, anyone that's in the top 10 is throwing well over 500 feet, so they can all be competitive. Some guys that aren't in the top 10 that can kind of sneak in there. Obviously, that's going to be your Ezra Aderhold types.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the list quickly here, all the usual suspects at the top. Anthony Barella could play really well. He absolutely smashes, and he's coming off a top 10 7th place.
Gannon Burr as well. He just came off this win. He's riding a high. Hopefully he can keep it up. If he can keep it up, he's a crusher as well. So
yeah, I'm counting Gannon Burr firmly in the top 10 from
100%.
now on. Yeah. And Simon's been playing like good golf
Really
this
good
year.
golf. Yeah.
Not getting too crazy, just playing his game and being very successful at it. So you can see Simon do well. There's just so many players that throw far now. But you know what? I'd like to see Nate Sexton play well. He's only played a few events and they've been kind of spotty. Hopefully he's getting enough practice. And I know Instagram told me he's moving again in life and Coraline and wife and stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously that all comes first, but he's such a fun guy to watch and fun guy to listen to.
Yeah.
I hope he does well at this one. He's still hanging on to a 930 rating, which, you know, is way up there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this is the course for him, but, you know, he's the guy I'd like to see do well. Outside of that, I mean, we could use to see Scott Withers play well.
You said 9:30, by the way, and it's 10:30. Just wanted to correct you. Hey, I know Nate Sexton listens to this podcast, so 10:30.
I'm 9:30. He's 10:30. Anyway, I'd also like to see Scott Withers do well.
Yes,
right?
100%.
He jumped to Discraft this year after being like the king of Oregon, beating up everyone in the Pacific Northwest for at least half a decade or more. Mixes in a few more big tour events this year, and his showing hasn't reflected his dominance that he had in the Northwest.
Yeah.
It might be because he's so comfortable on those courses. He plays them all the time. You know, you always win the same tournaments, get your practice in a lot. Maybe that just removal from his comfort zone, just not letting anything click for him. I don't know. But I've seen Scott play live a few times, and he can hang skills-wise with anybody. So he's maybe my dark horse for the MPO side this time around.
Great. Yeah. Should be exciting to watch. I think that's about all we have for the podcast today. I just wanted to thank you guys for listening to our podcast. If you like what you hear, please consider going to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/parkpro and contribute there for as little as $1.50 a month. Every little bit helps. I don't like asking for money, but you know, that helps to keep this thing going. So if you could do that, we really appreciate it.
Yeah. Just keeping these TV lights on us for the duration of this podcast probably costs us more than $1.50 in electricity. So please consider jumping on Patreon. It's not a ton of money. That's less than a bottle of pop at a gas station these days.
It's really easy to sign up. There's not really a huge commitment. You're not locked into a huge contract or anything. So definitely worth checking out. That's parkpro.com. You can follow the links to the Patreon page, or you can just go to patreon.com/parkpro. All right. I'm Andre.
And I'm Jesse, and this has been the Northern Flights podcast. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.